Good day everyone, I am Rafael Season together with Ms. Glenn Vertudaso and we're going to tackle about the concepts in language education research. What is language? Language is a means of communication. Languages use sounds, symbols, and words to express a meaning, idea, or a thought. Language education means teaching and learning a language. It also includes the efforts made by a learner to improve his or her native language. Language education is a branch of applied linguistics. Applied linguistics offers solutions to language-related real-life problems. So now let's go to the main topic, the language education research. Language teaching research is a peer-reviewed journal that publishes research within the area of a second or foreign language teaching. The problem, recognition, and definition. All research begins with a question. Intellectual curiosity is often the foundation for scholarly inquiry. Some questions are not testable. The classic philosophical example is to ask, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? While the question might elicit profound and thoughtful revelations, it clearly cannot be tested with an empirical experiment. Prior to Descartes, this is precisely the kind of question that would engage the minds of learned men. Their answers came from within.
Let us now proceed to the methods of research. There are three basic methods of research: the survey, the observation, and the experiment. Each method has its advantages and disadvantages. The survey is the most common method of gathering information in the social sciences, but it can also be a face-to-face interview, telephone, mail, email, or web survey. But a personal interview is one of the best methods because it obtains the personal, detailed, or in-depth information. It usually involves a lengthy questionnaire. In the survey, the interviewer fills out while asking questions. It allows for extensive probing by the interviewer and gives respondents the ability to elaborate their answer. So the telephone interviews are similar to the face-to-face interviews. They are more efficient in terms of time and cost. However, they are limited in the amount of in-depth probing that can be accomplished, and the amount of time can be allocated to the interview. While the mail survey is more cost-effective than interview methods, the researcher can obtain opinions, but trying to meaningfully probe opinions is very difficult. Email and web surveys are the most cost-effective and fastest methods, while the observation research monitors respondents' actions without directly interacting with them. It has been used for many years by Nielsen to monitor television viewing habits. So, through experiment methods of research, the investigator changes one or more variables over the course of the research when all other variables are held constant. Changes in the dependent variable can be explained by the change in the independent variable. So the next one is the sampling. Sampling, it is incumbent on the researcher to clearly define the target population. So sometimes the entire population will be sufficiently small and the researcher can include the entire population in the study. This type of research is called a census study because data is gathered on every member of the population. Usually, the population is too large for the researcher to attempt to survey all its members. A small but carefully chosen sample can be used to represent the population. The sample reflects the characteristic of the population from which it is shown. Sampling methods are classified as their probability and non-probability. In probability samples, each member of the population has a non-zero probability of being selected. Probability methods include random sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified sampling. In non-probability sampling, members are selected from the population in some non-random manner. Let us now go to the data collection. There are very few hard and fast rules to define the task of data collection. Each research project uses a data collection technique appropriate to the particular research methodology. The two primary goals for both quantitative and qualitative research studies are to maximize response and maximize the accuracy. When using an outside data collection service, researchers often validate the data collection process by contacting a percentage of the respondents to verify that they were actually interviewed. Data editing and cleaning involves the process of checking for inadvertent errors in the data. This usually entails using a computer to check for out-of-bounds data. The quantitative studies employ deductive logic where the researcher starts with a hypothesis and then collects data to confirm or refute the hypothesis. So the qualitative studies use inductive logic where the researcher first designs a study and then develops a hypothesis or theory to explain the results of the analysis. The quantitative analysis is generally fast and inexpensive because a wide assortment of statistical techniques are available to the researcher. Computer software is readily available to provide both basic and advanced manipulative analysis. And then, however, the researcher simply follows the pre-planned analysis process without making subjective decisions about the data. The ability to exclude personal biases, the interpretation of qualitative data is often highly subjective and different researchers can reach different conclusions from the same data. However, the goal of the qualitative research is to develop a hypothesis but not to test one. The qualitative studies have merit in that they provide broad, general theories that can be examined in the future research. So, the last one is the reporting the result. This is the most important consideration preparing any research report is the nature of the audience. The purpose is to communicate information and therefore the report should be prepared specifically for the readers of the report. Sometimes the format for the report will be defined for the researcher. For instance, a thesis or the dissertation, while other times the researcher will have complete latitude regarding the structure of the report. At a minimum, the report should contain an abstract problem statement, methods section, results section, discussion of the results, and the list of reference. That's all for the concept in language education research. Thank you.
Welcome to the last part of the topic 2. This is Desiree Gisihan from ED31B, and today we are going to learn about the stages in language education research. But what is educational research? Educational research is the collection and analysis of information on the world of education so as to understand and explain it better. It is also important to know these stages because it's like a map, and if we don't have it, we might get lost on our journey. So let us begin with the phase 1, the general question. Of course, in starting a research, you have to create a question. Source for questions. Experience and interest. You should rely on your experience and based on what you like to make your research easier. Other research. You should also look for other researches as your example or to have an idea. Source outside second language. Don't limit your research inside the country. Phase 2. Focusing the question. Feasibility. How? You have to look forward on how your research will go. Prerequisite knowledge. Rely on something you already know or something that you already have a background knowledge. The consistent definition of concepts and terms. Make sure that the terms you are going to use won't contradict each other. Logistical and practical problems. Be logical. Which approach? Synthetic or analytic? You should choose what approach that you are going to use in your research. The synthetic approach is the approach that looks at the research question or topic from a holistic point of view. It's more on combining various processes or systems or other components into more complex whole as means of learning or better understanding the whole. Analytical approach is the approach use of analysis to break on problem down into the elements necessary to solve it. It's the same as the formal writing. Phase 3. Deciding on an objective or purpose. Heuristic research. Heuristic research involves exploring the subjective experience of a particular phenomenon within a purpose sample of individuals. Deductive research. Deductive research typically associated with scientific investigation. Phase 4. Formulating the research plan or the hypothesis. The research hypothesis. It is a specific, clear, and testable proposition or predictive statement about the possible outcome of a scientific research study. It's an intelligent guess. The null hypothesis. Null hypothesis is a type of hypothesis used in statistics that proposes that there is no difference between certain characteristics of a population. Basic steps in the research process. The following steps outline a simple and effective strategy for writing a research paper, depending on your familiarity with the topic and the challenges you encounter along the way. You may need to rearrange these steps. So step 1, identify and develop your topic. So selecting a topic can be the most challenging part of a research. So here are some tips for selecting a topic. Select a topic within the parameters set by the assignment. So many times your instructor will give you a clear guidelines as to what you can and cannot write about. Failure to work within these guidelines may result in your proposed paper being deemed unacceptable by your instructor. So we should always be mindful on selecting a topic to avoid many revisions. Select a topic of personal interest to you and learn more about it. The research for and writing of a paper will be more enjoyable if you are writing about something that you find interesting, something that you really like. Select a topic for which you can find a manageable amount of information. Think about the topic that are easy to find reliable sources for the information that you need. Be original. Of course, we should create something new to stand out, not just the topics that we usually see at the news. See your instructor for advice. Once you have identified your topic, it may help to state it as a question. Step 2. Do a preliminary search for information. Before beginning your research in earnest, do a preliminary search to determine whether there is enough information out there for your needs and to set the context of your research. So, before beginning your research, make sure your topic is not hard to find sources of information. Step 3. Locate materials. With the direction of your research now clear to you, you can begin locating material on your topic. So, there are many sources, libraries, internet, magazines, and etc. Step 4. Evaluate your sources. See the CARS checklist for information quality for tips on evaluating the authority and quality of the information you have located. Always check the reliability of the sources. See if it's outdated or not. Step 5. Make notes. Consult the resources you have chosen and note the information that will be useful in your paper. So always keep the resources and information that will be useful in your paper, and be sure to document all the sources you consult. Step 6. Write your paper. Organizing the information you have collected and the rough draft. Organize the information you have collected, then make a draft wherein you get your ideas on a paper in an unfinished fashion. This step will help you organize your ideas and determine your final paper. Step 7. Cite your sources properly. Give credit where the credit is due. Cite your sources. Always give proper credit to avoid plagiarism. Step 8. Proofread. The final step in the process is to proofread the paper you have created. So, always be mindful. Check everything before finalizing to avoid errors. Additional research tips. Work from the general to the specific. Don't forget print sources. The library has books on the topic of writing research papers at call number area LB 2369. Ask your instructor. So thank you for joining me here today. God bless.